Good morning, everyone. My name is Billy. I am the founder and organizer of Bookstore Romance Day, and I wanted to thank you all for being here with us on this second day of Bookstore Romance Day weekend 2025. Uh, I am thrilled to have this panel of a little kiss of Sourcebooks and Casablanca and Bloom books, presented by Sourcebooks, Casablanca and Bloom books, obviously. Few notes before we get fully started. This is being recorded. Everybody will get an email if you registered with a link to watch the recording sometime in the future. I will be dropping links in the chat for purchasing books, purchasing audiobooks. If you have questions for any of the authors, please drop them in the Q&A. Try not to drop them in the chat because they're likely to get lost, so use that little Q&A button. And finally, I just want to say thank you to Sourcebooks, Casablanca, and Bloom Books for sponsoring this panel and being a Bookstore Romance Day sponsor this year. Thank you indeed to all of our sponsors, and a huge thank you to Bramble Books, who is our headline sponsor this year. And with all of that housekeeping out of the way, I now turn it over to China. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. My name is China Reevers. I am coming in from Country Bookshelf in Bozeman, Montana. I am so excited to be here today and be a part of this panel. I am joined by these lovely authors. We have Alysha Rameera. Her upcoming release, Her Soul for a Crown, comes out on Tuesday, August 12th. So this week, we're looking forward to that. Then we have Jessica Peterson, USA Today bestselling author. Cash, the first book of the Lucky River Ranch series, is currently out, and Wyatt, the second book in the series, comes out August 19th. So that's coming up soon. Really excited for that one. And then we have Tillie Cole, a recent New York Times bestselling author with Write Me for You. I noticed that just hit the best-selling list, so congratulations to you. And that just came out recently. So excited to have you all here today. How are we feeling?
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Yes, thank you for having us. This is so fun.
Great. I have some questions for y'all, and then at the end we'll take questions from the audience. But to get it started, I just wanted to jump into like why romance. I know as a reader, I love it for the tension. I love the inevitable happily ever after. And I love that it is about a main character who is empowered and ends up choosing themselves and putting themselves for, it's like, yes, I can do that too. So I'd love to know why romance for you as authors and what inspires you to write in this genre? Whomever.
I'll go.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I mean, I actually exclusively read romance as well, to be fair. So it's kind of like my entire life is romance fiction. I'm kind of massively in favor of like redemption arcs. That's kind of been my thing. I mean, I brought my first book out in 2013, so I was an indie author for a really long time. Yeah, it feels crazy that I've been writing that long, but I don't know, a romance for me, it's always like, I always feel like love in any of its forms just really attracts me to a story. So whether I write dark romance as well as lighter romance, and I just like the fact that in all of that kind of that kind of spectrum, like love kind of conquers all somewhat. But then I'm also hugely a fan of like familial love and things like that. So you'll find in a lot of my books, like I have a massive love for side characters, for friendship groups, girlfriends, like and guys, like in all my books, I'm very much dual POV, and side characters and the kind of love found family tropes, that kind of thing. And I think that's because that's what I value as well in my life. So like I've been with my husband since high school. I'm a very, you know, I have a very small but very tight group of best friends, and my kids are my everything. My animals are my everything. It's kind of like, you know, my whole little life, because it is quite a little life. I don't have a huge amount of people in my life. But it's those bonds that really like to get you through the hard times, and then they make your happy times even better. So I think my books with romance, it's a reflection on all the different types of love, very C.S. Lewis, but you know, all of the different types of love that you get. That's why I choose it.
Thank you so much. I love that. Alysha, Jessica, any?
Yeah. I think for me, tension. I have always been drawn to tension. And then when Tillie mentioned the redemption arc, I was like, oh yeah, a very fundamental time in my life was when I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. And there's a great redemption arc in there. And I was waiting for some like more love stuff because I think I was on the older end of the kids watching the show. So I gravitate to any kind of a redemption arc, and I think it's because of that show. But yeah, I love the tension between characters and then seeing growth, like personal growth, making love bloom. I don't know where that came from, but that's like my catnip for any type of story, whether that be like a contemporary rom-com or a dark romance or like a fantasy romance. As long as those two elements are in there, I will inhale the story.
I love that. That's great. Jessica.
Okay, I'll hop in last here. I totally agree with all of those answers. I think tension is just so delicious, keeps you on the edge of your seat. And it's also so satisfying when the characters finally have their like F it moment and kind of surrender to you know their attraction for each other. But why romance in terms of like bigger picture stuff? I distinctly remember stealing my mom's Catherine Colter books growing up when I was, you know, like um, a bookish, introverted, you know, 13, 14, 15-year-old. And I just couldn't stop reading them. I knew immediately that I had found my thing. And I have been reading romance ever since. And I think for me, romance in life and in books is about characters and people seeing each other for who they really are. And that just so appeals to me. You know, and also obviously I love some spice. My books are very spicy. And gotta mention that too. Considering that the sex education I got was like this much, you know, I learned about sex and romance books. And so I think it's so important to see things like sex positivity, safe sex, consensual sex, good sex, you know, on the page. And it's just been so informative to me. And also, it's just romance is so freaking fun. So a little bit of all those things.
I love all of that, and that all resonates. The redemption arc, it's not something I would have thought of, but it's so true. I love just that growth. Alysha also said that you see in these characters, and the sex
I think this
positivity
is why
piece.
K-pop Demon Hunters is being so popular, because I've watched that now a million times. Me and my son are obsessed with it. I watched it with my son, and then I think I genuinely ended up liking it more. But when Jinnu, you know this, if you know the story, you know the story. But at the end with Jinnu, I was like, and this is why book people are obsessed with this film, because it's that redemption arc. He's a morally great character, but love love saves him, and the girl's powerful, and she has this gorgeous group of friends who will literally do anything for her. And I was like, that's why that's so popular. I think that's why romance books are so popular. It's that same thing.
Yes, definitely. I love, especially, and I love reading books with all different like main characters and different love interests and things like that. Focusing on female main characters because that's what we all have, or what you all have. Just the female empowerment piece, like what you said, just you kind of slipped that in there, Tillie, about like choosing her power and being so powerful. And I think that shows up in so many different ways in romances, whether that is because of the actual power that they have, through magic or whatever, or if it's just the power of taking a step back and finding something within themselves where they're like, yes, I deserve this and I'm gonna get it. And I love that. So I love seeing
I
that.
think I love this idea of like the centering of female power and pleasure in
Yeah.
romance that we really don't see necessarily in a ton of
Yes.
other genres. And something, maybe I'm just writing this arc right now, is especially my own personal life, like in romance, I love to see a heroine for her whole life has chosen to make everybody else happy, has chosen to center everybody else's happiness, and then has this awakening that, wait a second, I need to put myself first. I need to, okay, maybe I'm going to disappoint everybody else by making this choice, but I'm not going to disappoint myself. Like refusing to leave herself behind. I think it's so important to see that on the page. And one place I consistently see it is in romance.
Yes, definitely. With romance has always been high performing genre. Like it's always been popular, but it's been something that isn't spoken as much about. I think like historically romance has been like that. I like romance. And it feels like it's more popular than ever these days. People are talking about it. They're listening to their audiobooks on full blast with their windows down, and everything like that. Why do you think that is? Is it because of the narratives that we're talking about of female empowerment and moving out of these narratives of centering everyone else's happiness? So I'd love to kind of talk more about that.
I
If
think
anyone
you're
has.
right. I hadn't thought about that before, but if we, the authors, have even been um, kind of grown up on those narratives in the background or quietly, and it's our turn to be writing for the next group of audience readers. Yeah, I think you might be right that that's like finally coming through out of the book into reality of an awakening of our own power or wanting to grasp it and like being told that I'm allowed to
And
and that my
owning
kid's
it,
allowed to
maybe
and
like,
owning it.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, that
definitely.
permission piece, like you said,
Yeah.
like, yes, I love that.
I think
Some,
women as well, just in the last several years, we have kind of taken a little bit of power back as well. Obviously, things like the Me Too movement and stuff, I think it really made women go, do you know what? We're sick of being put on the sidelines. Why is our health not studied in sciences? Why are men seem to be more powerful? Like, I mean, I don't know about Jessica and Alysha, but when I started writing romance, it was very interesting, I thought, when I was suddenly around men who I'd known for a long time, and they started saying, you're writing filthy books, you're writing the only reason that you're successful is because you're writing books that have no plot, no storyline, it's just sex, almost like degrading my success. Especially, I found it interesting that men, I mean, I'm from a very, very rinky-dink small town in the north of England, which is not the most progressive place, put it that way. So I'm not surprised I came up. There's a lot of kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to bash where I'm from because I live here and I love it. But we're a wee bit behind more progressive areas, let's put it that way. So I think when men I'd known for a long time who were very traditionally successful in other jobs, police, teaching, law, they almost didn't like that I was becoming as successful as them. So I felt like when I was in company, they would make a joke about my career. They would make snide comments to other people. Like I had a neighbor who knew a friend and they knew what I did. And he said, oh, I was told you write filthy books. And that was 3 months ago. And I was like, I've done this since 2013 and it's 2025. And that is still the opening line that people tend to say to me in my very small town. And, I just think that's why women now want to take back that power with romance, because frankly, I'm sick of being told that my books don't mean anything, but to get women excited or, And it's not that at all, because I like to think that when women are reading my books, they do feel empowered and they do take something from it. And my favorite thing is when husbands of my readers also read the books and enjoy it and go, oh no, that's nothing. That's not what I thought. It was brilliant. Like, oh, I really enjoyed the journey of that. And I don't know about everybody else, but that's kind of why I continue to write from a really strong female point of view, because I do think, yes, there's been a lot happened in the last few years to give us more of a voice. But I kind of think we're screaming into an echo chamber at the minute, and I would like it to be a little bit more amplified still. So that's my personal opinion on that.
Definitely. I mean, I still have people come in the bookstore who are like, where's your romance section? I'm like, our romance section is over here. What do you want? Do you want like dark romance? Do you want spice? You want open door? Do you want just something like sweet? Because there is this huge gamut of what is happening in romance, and it's not centered around the spice, but the spice is there, and that's not a problem either. Like, it's like,
Exactly.
yes, there is spice in these books because female pleasure is important, and I love
also,
seeing it.
like, sex is part of life. Like,
This is part of life.
most people in their adult lives are going to either be having sex or, you know, like whatever sex, you know, whatever form that may take. But
we
I
all
have a
got
friend,
here.
Right. But I have a friend who's a therapist, and the first question she'll ask you when she sees you, just like, you know, Couch, just like, when was the last time you had an orgasm? Like, that's how important pleasure is to your happiness, to your life. And so I just think, you know, I get the comments too, where it's like, oh, you're the romance author. Oh, is your husband, you know, the, inspiration? And I'm kind of like, yes, exactly. And I'm like, I think it's because nobody knows how to talk about sex. And we should be able to talk about sex as human adults because we're all having it, like, or, you know, a lot of us are having it. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I love every book club I have done in the past year or so. It becomes a conversation in a very welcoming, warm, accepting environment about sex. And it feels very cathartic, and it feels very like I come away, and I think we all do, and I'm like, damn, that was fun, you know? And so if romance is this jumping off point for us to start talking about this very important aspect of being human, hell yeah. Like, give it to me all day long, right? So yeah, I think it's just kind of, you know, 50 Shades of Grey blew the doors off and kind of brought us mainstream, where people are kind of embracing the fact that they read this book, like this book, want more of this stuff. And it's also new generation of young readers is holding up these books on TikTok and talking about them. And so I think that's really a powerful message to everybody about, you know, hey, I read romance, make fun of me if you want. You're missing out because this stuff is delicious and it's fun and it's meaningful, and it, you know, it can be as deep or as light or as, you know, spicy or not spicy as you want. But it's an important perspective, you know, that people are talking about in a way they haven't before. So I think it's a really cool time to be a romance author, obviously with our political landscape, an interesting one as well. But like Tillie was saying, I think it's so important for us to just keep using our books to put these, you know, positive messages out there in the world, because I think readers need that sense of found family, acceptance, positivity, and happily ever after, you know, more than ever.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a comment come in that was about like escaping reality is part of it as well. And I do think that's there for a lot of us. And I think it can also be a mirror of your own relationships. Like, does this match up? Like, is this like, I am so attracted to this person on the page. Is that who I'm attracted to in real life? Like, is this? So I don't know. It's always so much fun having those conversations. I'd love to know more about each of your writing process. Sees like, do you have a comfort item? Are you a person who has a very regimented work schedule? Do you plot your entire story, or do you let your characters kind of tell you where to go? There's so much, I think, that varies from writer to writer. And so I'd love to hear more about how you get your stories on the page.
I guess I'll jump in first. So I am very much a steady Betty. I have my happy pace is writing 2,000 words a day. I am a
Okay.
very, very slow writer. I have a deadline this Friday and I've gotten way behind on it. So this week I have to write 5,000 words a day, which for me is like makes me want to cry because it takes me like 10 hours to do it. I'm very much a pantser. I've tried every different form of, writing, whether it's outlining, save the cat, all of that stuff. But I have found I'll have a couple scenes in my head. They're usually spicy scenes, and I will build, a book kind of around those. I typically write in order. And what I've discovered about my writing process is I do that because I'm discovering who the characters are.
Mhm.
And my books are very character driven. So, they're going to tell me what happens next. And, it makes for like a pretty chaotic first draft scenario. But when I get to the end of the book, I'm usually like, oh, that's what I was trying to say. All right, let me go back and rework basically the first 25,000 words. So yeah, it's controlled chaos, I guess is the way that I would describe my writing process. My favorite part is definitely I love edits because I feel like that's when the magic happens. That's when you're really kind of
Tuning.
yes, exactly. Fine tuning, getting to, mining the depths of your characters. And then, no, my favorite part is when I can hold the book in my hands because that means it's totally done. And I'm like, I could sit back and then start the next one. Because, in romance, we write a lot, we publish a lot. So that's kind
Yeah.
of my process.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm
Alysha,
kind of,
Tillie?
I bounce all over. I mean, like, yeah. I'm very chaotic in every part of my life, and writing is absolutely an indication of that. So I can actually write a book in like 3 weeks, but I have to be hyper focused. So I actually have autism and
They're both like,
ADHD. Yeah. I can, yeah. So I have autism and ADHD. So I have this very conflicting brain. So sometimes, in theory, I would love to be regimented. The idea of being able to sit down and write 2,000 to 5,000 words a day sounds bliss. That's just not my life and never has been. I've never written a book like that in my life. So I basically spend about 6 weeks having an existential crisis every day and thinking I'm the worst writer in the world, putting mood boards together. I always make a playlist first. So my entire books are shaped by the soundtrack, if you like. I'm a massive music person. It's like my second biggest passion to writing. And I can't write until that's right. And I listen to repeat this playlist. I wear my headphones and I just listen. And similar to Jessica, actually, I always have about 5 big scenes in my head. So they're the big kind of dramatic points. Tends to be the first one is always, why am I writing the book? So what's happening in that prologue or in that first chapter? And then the others are big elements of the book, one being the end, obviously. And then I just sit down when my brain tells me it's time, and I never know when that's going to be, which is a nightmare for editors because I am notoriously late. As Bloom Books, Kristen, my brilliant, gorgeous editor, will testify. I just get warnings. I just get text messages going, if we don't have it by Friday, we can't publish. I'm like, okay, I'll be there. Yeah, so I sit down and again, like Jessica, I just write. And sometimes it's similar to what I think the story will be. Sometimes it's completely not. The most I've written in one day was 14,000 words. That was pre-children. And I didn't even know. I just looked up and 18 hours had gone by and 14,000 words I'd written in that day.
Did you say
My
18 hours?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
before I used to have
18.
my children, I used to write about 18 hours. And then they came along and screwed up my plans. So now I really struggle, to be fair. Now I just can't quite get that flow. So luckily I have a really lovely family. So when I'm in that hyper focus, everyone's like, right, let her go in her office and just get this book down. Because it's like I have to live it. I have to live it. my husband actually gets a little bit annoyed with me, and he can't, obviously I can't help it, and he doesn't really mean it, but I get so attached to the characters, I actually really struggle to move on afterwards. Like, I have multiple series going at the same time, and I also bounce from dark romance to light and everything in between. But that again is indicative of the way my brain works. It's kind of like I need novelty. So that's how I end up writing different genres. My dream one day is to have an actual schedule, but I genuinely can't see that happening. I just don't think, I think my magic is in the chaos, as annoying as it can be sometimes. But I'm kind of chaotic as a person, so I feel like it matches up. But yeah, music and whenever my brain tells me, and then I'm off. So yeah.
I love that. I love
That
that.
is so
I
wild.
love the idea of like setting the vibe, because I do that
Yeah.
too.
I
I have a
do,
playlist,
yeah.
and you do every like book I write has like one specific song in particular
Yeah,
that like
I was
really
that was a
captures,
question I had.
yes, that
Yeah.
captures just the vibe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can't even explain it until I hear it. I hear the song and I'm like,
yes.
oh,
That's the
oh,
one.
that's
That's
it.
the
That's it.
one. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I definitely relate to
Yeah,
that.
I had a dark book that I particularly loved, and I heard Disturbed Sound of Silence, and this scene came to me in my head here in that song before I was even remotely ready to write that book. So when I got to that book, it was the fourth book in the series, and it's this massive, and it's a dark romance, so it's a really brutal scene, but it was so strong. And I listened to that song on repeat, nothing else. Like in the car, if I was taking, with me and my husband were going for a coffee break, he was like, I can't hear this song anymore. And I'm like, shut up, I have to. And like even now, there's certain songs from every book. If I hear it, I can tell you what scene in what book I wrote that too.
Wow.
So, and again, it's just the way I think I connect things. But yeah, Disturbed Sound of Silence, that's one of my, like, if I ever want something to rip me apart, I'll find a song that has that kind of, like that guttural, like, I love stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to that. Go
I'm
for it, Alysha.
super regimented. I have a routine. I have like every hour of my day planned out. So it's like in my life and in my writing life, I just have an outline of the day, and it's the same every single day. But yeah, I need a lot of clarity with a story. So I think I like my zero draft, or like a first draft actually happens in my head and when I'm writing the outline, because I do use craft books like John Truby's 22 Steps and Save the Cat, which is like 15 beats, which are the same. And then John Truby like added more. And then I have like a chapter by chapter outline. So I have to know so much about the plot and the character arc and the romance and like the details way before I actually start writing sentences. Some like dialogue will come to me, like chunks of dialogue while I'm outlining, and I'll write them down and I know exactly what chapter they need to go in, at least for the first draft, and then things sometimes get moved around during revisions. But yeah, I need to know a lot. And my editor, this is my debut novel, so we're working on my sophomore novel together. So it's the first time with this editor going from like scratch with a book. And I had sent her my outline, and recently she was like, "Are all your outlines like 65 pages?" And I was like,
Oh my
"Yes,
God.
kind of."
Wow.
Is that an
Wow.
outline or is that like
Yeah,
a
that's when
novella?
another
Yeah.
author told me. She was like, "That's not an outline, honey. That's a zero draft." I was like, "Okay, well, there it is."
I
Do you know
love
what
that.
though? Is it because you write, so it's fantasy you write, yeah?
Yeah, fantasy romance or romantasy.
I do wonder if though, because I'm a massive fantasy fan, so I'm a Lord of the Rings, like best books on the
Yeah.
planet kind of. So for me, I do wonder if, because with fantasy you have to build a world, it's not a given. Like you have to introduce your readers to a world, and then like no one would have known what a hobbit was had Tolkien not described what they were, and no one would have known
Right.
an orc was, and that kind of thing. I do wonder if with fantasy you have to be more disciplined in that respect, because you
Yeah.
have so many moving pieces that
Yeah.
people, I suppose, write in a contemporary romance category, you know, because we are writing essentially in an already established world. I wonder if
Yeah.
you get what I mean? Like, I wonder if you
Yeah.
have to be somewhat more disciplined because you have so many moving pieces.
Moving parts. Yeah, I tried to pants novel years ago and the plot went nowhere because I was, yeah, either continuously world building and like bringing
Yeah.
up things that the first 15 chapters never talked about, which doesn't help a reader get set in the world. But yeah, so that's when I realized, like, I don't know if it's, yeah, a genre thing or my brain thing. But
Maybe a
yeah,
little bit
I
of
definitely
both.
a little bit of both. Yeah. And I typically write in the mornings. I like to write from like 7 to noon. That's when my brain is like the best. I'm an early riser. But yeah, my goal is like one chapter a day, which is usually between 2,000 and 4,000 words. It's usually like 25, but sometimes I get real wordy.
I get really wordy. My chapters are massive. Like one of my best friends once said to me, "Can you cut your chapters down so that?" And I said, "No, I talk. I write like I talk. I
No.
waffle." And she said, "Yeah, but she lives in London." And she said, "I like to read a chapter between tube stops."
Yeah.
And your chapters are too long for my tube stops. And I was like, "Oh well, like don't read my books." But I always remember that as like, oh, I can see why people like smaller chapters because yeah, people who are traveling to work, you know, they only have a specific time, whatever. But I'm like you, some of my chapters are like 6,000 words long. So
Oh, easily. Yeah. It
Yeah.
just depends, you know, it depends on the story,
it
but
depends,
And I
yeah.
think, yeah, it depends. And like not every single chapter will be the exact same or in the range of that 4,000 or 6,000, but sometimes they need it, you know?
Yeah.
You can't just break it up because then it like cuts the tension or cuts the whatever the
Oh,
problem
The
is.
momentum,
Yeah, the
like what else?
momentum
Yeah.
in a weird spot. And you're like, you definitely don't want a reader to stop there for like an entire day.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I will sometimes more than sometimes, I like to end the chapter on somewhat of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So you kind of like
Yeah.
you can't wait to dive back in. If you're getting off the
Yeah.
tube and you're like, God damn it. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was, oh, I can't wait to find out what happens next. I feel like it's
yeah.
such a nice, clean ending at the end of a chapter for the chapter to end, the point of view to switch, and then also to have that cliffhanger of like, okay, this
Mhm.
just happened in his POV. What does she think about it? You know, or vice versa.
Yes, yes, I want that. I
So,
want
Yeah.
that.
right.
Damn it
Yeah.
moment.
Yes,
Desperation
that's
to
exactly
get to the
right.
next bit. Yeah, yeah.
It's the
Yes.
reason like one more chapter before I go to sleep doesn't work because you're like, I'm just gonna read like 2 chapters before bed and then literally, I mean, I know it happens to me. Those memes are very real. It's like
Yes.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
I have finished the book even though I was only like halfway through it at 9:30. Like I'm just like, oh my gosh.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So good for all of you for creating the end of a chapter that drives me to just keep going. I love that. So sneaky, but it's working. Um, Jessica, you talked about how when you don't really celebrate until it is fully complete, it's in your hands. I was wondering because I had a question of like how do you celebrate finishing a first draft? But I'm not sure. Do any of you celebrate finishing a first draft, or when do you celebrate? Because this is such an endeavor. And
Yes.
it's like,
Right?
how do you celebrate
the
yourselves?
I celebrate the milestones. Like
Yeah.
I'll celebrate differently for each of them. So like finishing the first draft, I will go to like get a special treat, whether that like be ice cream or some sort of dessert. Um, the big stuff like finishing the book and like sending it off, whether that be sending it off to when I was querying agents or when my agent was sending it out to editors. Now this time, like I actually can celebrate having it in my hands. Those require like Prosecco and like maybe some cheese and some prosciutto and like it gets fancier with the bigger milestones.
I totally agree with that because like I already like know, okay, on Friday I have my deadline. I'm like, I'm not gonna have one glass of Chardonnay, I'm gonna have 2 glasses of Chardonnay.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And then when it gets through content edits, then I'm like, okay, then we're gonna go out to a restaurant and have our Chardonnay. And then so
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
progressively, you know, it gets more and more fun.
Yep.
But I do think because it's a solitary endeavor. It's an endeavor, but it's very solitary. And so I feel like, if you're working in like a traditional workplace where you're working with a team, okay, you're going to go have this like fun team dinner or fun team trip. You have to really psych yourself up, and you
Mhm.
really have to pat yourself on the back because nobody else is going to.
Yeah.
And you just have to figure out what feels special to you. Is it a couple days off? Is it Prosecco? Is it, some meats and cheeses? Is it some jewels? Like whatever you want it to be, you have to make it happen for yourself. And because it does have to feel special, because so much of this job is a grind. It's showing up every day, getting your ass in the chair when it's boring, when you feel like the story's going nowhere. You really have to celebrate the wins because in between there's so many valleys. And so when you get to the top of that mountain, celebrate getting to the top of that damn mountain, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
I sleep. I tend to sleep. So by the time I finish the first draft, I've not slept for weeks and I've just gone on pure adrenaline. So my reward is literally
In bed.
my kids are
Yes.
at school, drop them off. I have horses, so I go see to my horses. And then I come back and I literally don't move, or I'll read a book. Like I read
Yes,
someone else's
yes.
reading.
I do the
It's so
same
nice
thing.
to
It's
read
a
somebody
treat.
else's
It's a treat.
reading.
Yes.
Like I'm going to devour this series in however long it takes my editor to get back. But first draft, I brain dump. So I always know my first draft is a work in progress, if you like. It's finished, but it's far from finished. I actually handed in a book Thursday last week. So I am waiting this week probably to get it back. Because they go really quick. And I know it's just going to be bullet points of it's missing this or change this or do this or whatever. And I hate edits with I hate them. I get more stressed with edits. However, when I hand in the second draft, I feel like angels are singing because it is absolutely the book I want it to be after the edits are done. So it's the funniest dynamic because I'm doing them and I hate them and I'm more stressed doing edits. But I do know that this is what's going to make my book for my readers. So it's a funny thing. So I probably celebrate more with second edits, like the second draft when that's done, than the real one, the first one, sorry, because, and that's just my process. I know some people are very happy with the first draft apart from tweaks. Like mine aren't tweaks, mine are like full on, like rewrites everything because I have essentially just poured a story from my brain without much planning. Obviously, being a pantser, Jessica, you might be the same in that respect. So sometimes things don't work. You've took a turn where they go, yeah, no, it needs to be more angsty here, or when it comes to like my lighter books, I write tearjerkers, which involve really like harrowing topics, like terminal illness mostly. So, you have to then make sure that everything you've written is factually correct and it's sensitive to that. And so there's, depending on what I'm writing, what kind of genre, I feel like the edits look differently. But I probably end up celebrating more on when I finish the second draft than I even do on release day. Just because that's when, to me, it feels like the book that's going to go out. So
yeah. Thank you. There are a couple of questions from the audience. I'm not going to leave them to the end because they kind of touch on something you brought up, Tillie, about how you write tearjerkers. And so both of the questions are kind of like similar, but one is, how do you deal with big issues, divorce, grief, sickness and accidents, bankruptcy? And then I'm going to make this the second part of it. Has there ever been a scene you wrote that made you cry while writing? I think they're kind of like what you said about writing tearjerkers. And I know all of us have these I say us, you have emotionally heavy scenes. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so the tearjerkers I cry, like it's so funny because I know some authors say I never cry writing a sad book. Like the reason, so in 2013 I wrote a contemporary romance series, and it was intended to be light, and it actually was really heavy with like emotion and there was grief in that as well. And that was kind of the book series that launched me. And then I very quickly went into dark romance. So I became known for more dark. And then very unfortunately, my family, I have a very small family, and my nana, my granddad, my mother, and my father all got cancer at the same time. And then there's me and my sister. And it was that my sister turned around to me one day and said, we might lose our entire family by Christmas. And I was like, yeah, like, and I was in my 20s, early 30s. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is happening? I can't cope with this. And we lost my grandparents, but luckily my mum, touch wood, she's in remission, has been for years. My dad had a terminal cancer, but they managed to keep him functioning for as long as they could. And basically in 2016, I was really struggling mentally, and I felt like our family had just been battered. And I just came up, I said to my husband one day, we were actually living in Texas at the time, and I said to him, I've got this story, and it's a tearjerker, and it's about these two teenagers, and there's like no spice in it. It's all about a girl who has leukemia and her childhood sweetheart, and it's about how they navigate this awful diagnosis and what's going to happen to both of them, to her, to him. And that was 1,000 Boy Kisses. And when I wrote that book, I was hyperventilating on some of them scenes, because every major scene in that book is based on a family member of mine. And in that time, my husband's father died of cancer as well. So it was a real, like, weird moment in my life. And I thought that, and when I announced to my readers I'd written a YA tearjerker, it was like crickets, because they were, for the most part, dark romance readers. And they were like, what? Like, what? But actually, that book probably changed my life. And I just think it's interesting how you can take things like grief and pain and so forth, and turn it into a piece of literature that it's amazing how many people are in your shoes, and you don't know that until you put something out. And then you start, you open this door to people, and you go, oh, there's all these people. And like, similar to what we were saying about romance as a genre, I think people, when it comes to grief or dealing with terminal illness or long-term illness, chronic illness, whatever it is, people don't really talk about it. They feel like they're a burden if they talk about how it feels to be living with somebody like that, or mental health. So yeah, and then Broken Pieces, which was the follow-up to that came because I did actually lose my dad 3 years ago, and it was for how long he'd fought cancer. It was very sudden and a surprise. And the grief of losing a parent was something I had never expected. Like, I didn't know how to cope with that. And I vowed I would never write another book to Boy Kisses, because I felt like it was perfect as it was for me. It was what I wanted it to be. But then I was like, started thinking about that book, and it's like, oh, well, what happens to people left behind? And that's how that happened. So I kind of carried on with that. And so yeah, in those instances, I suppose I try to either research something really well if I don't know it, to the point of I feel like I'm living it as well, or speak to people in real life who've gone through it. Or I tend to write about experiences that I've had or my family members have gone through, but that I've been witness to. Just like, so there's an authenticity there for me. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Oh, that's so much
Yeah.
to carry, just
Okay.
to hold, and then to share that. So with your writing and with us today, thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think also, like, reading Tillie's books, you feel as a reader less alone in what your experience. And I think that's one of the things that brings us to books and brings us to stories is nothing new under the sun, right? Like, there's comfort in knowing you're not the only person who is, bulldozed by what's happening in your life, right? And so, just like you said, Tillie, nobody, most people don't talk about the hard things. And I think,
Yeah.
romance is one of those beautiful spaces that does talk about the hard things, but you also get the silver lining with it, right? So it's like, how do we cope with the thing? Like, how do we bear the unbearable things? I think reading stories, literature, it's part of that. It's part of helping us, cope with these, really difficult, awful things. And so, yeah, I think Tillie's books are a
And
beautiful.
finding like a beauty in some of the dark things. Like
Yes.
when you're in the trenches, you don't see any beauty in anything. But actually, I found with hindsight, sometimes I think about those late nights in the hospitals where, we're all like gathered round and we're waiting for the inevitable. But then I think of the stories that we were sharing and the kind of closeness and the bonding. And then you think about the nurses, the hospice workers who are, the hands are on your shoulder and they're just like supporting you. And you do look back and you go, do you know, in all of that awfulness, there was some absolute like beautiful examples of the human condition, if you like. And, I think I think because of romance, we romanticize everything. It does make you actually reflect and go, oh, hang on, there was some gorgeousness in that situation, as awful as it was. And I think that's why in my tearjerkers particularly, they're very hopeful as well as tragic, because I do think when you're out of the darkness and you can look back, you do go, oh, do you know that there was always a light there? I just didn't see it at the time. There was kind of somebody holding a candle in the background for me. I just was blind to it. And then, I just kind of tried to work them into the story, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a catharsis in
Mhm.
reading books with elements that are, real life and tough. I know a few years ago when I was in a pretty deep depression, I was reading like the darkest fantasies, and yet they were giving me such hope that like these characters are going through this dark time. They're dealing with grief. They're dealing with illnesses or like actual, life or death situations on like an hourly basis. And it was a catharsis to see like I didn't feel alone, and also to see them go through it and get out on the other
And
side.
overcoming is so
Overcoming.
important,
Yeah.
seeing that.
Yeah. And there's one book that I remember I'd had trouble like getting out of bed one day. So I was reading in bed, and just this line popped up that the character was told by a side character, like the only way out is through. And I remember just crying so hard, but feeling so hopeful. Like they were talking to me, like, you're going to get through it. You're going to get out. You just have to go through. And I was like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Um, And both Jessica and Alysha, you both have, I know with Alysha, your female main character is orphaned, and so she's driven by like revenge, and Jessica and Cash, I believe, like it's an estranged daughter who is inheriting a ranch after her father dies. So we see loss and grief come up in ways that drive these characters in all of your books. So I think that's just like, as you said, it's something we all experience. And not necessarily something we all talk about. So there is this catharsis there, both in what we're writing and what we're reading. Another question from an audience member was, can you name one of your favorite romance books that you've read, each of you?
Ooh, a favorite. Ooh,
A
there's
favorite.
so many.
There are some.
Oh my gosh, what? I have genre lists.
Yeah, what genre are we going for?
Romance. They
Just romance
specified
in general.
romance. Yeah, they specified romance.
Okay.
Well, one that I recently read that stood out to me was Thrill of the Chase by Catherine Nolan. It is a delicious FF treasure hunter romance, and she's such a beautiful writer, and it deals with things like grief, estrangement, just like complicated family dynamics, which really spoke to me at this phase in my life. But that was one that recently stood out to me amongst the 38,000 drafts that I have read of my own terrible cowboy books right now. Like, so
I
One
mean,
that I
I'm
just recently
no, yeah,
read. Sorry.
no, you go.
Recently read that still like stuck in my head is Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. It's a dark like mafia romance like retelling of Lilith or reimagining of Lilith, and it just has so much, it has so much female empowerment, but with it she like Scarlett dives into Lilith's like emotions around it because Lilith, the main character, is like set in a world where women don't actually have power. Like they have the power, but they're not allowed to use it. And so like there's a lot of emotion around that. And then that ties into like the way that the romance is unfolding because of the way the world is supposed to be working. And like so yeah, it's really wonderful. And that tension, because of the way the world is set up, there's so much tension when you're just like waiting and being like, just kiss, just kiss, just kiss, please. Oh my God.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm going to be really like English here, but I read Pride and Prejudice every year without fail, and I also read Wuthering Heights because they are my two favorites. I think that's probably where I get my mixed genre love from, because Wuthering Heights is like messed up, but it's also near where I'm from. So, you know, like the moors and all the rest of it is kind of on my doorstep. So I very much feel at one with Kathy and Heathcliff. And one of my dark romance books is kind of loosely based on that. And Pride and Prejudice, because Darcy. But do you know, I just love romance. I inhale books. Like I am such a big reader, but I tend to read books that are, so Jessica, I've read all yours, so all you can, like,
thank you.
love cowboy because I'm a horse rider, I'm a horse owner, but we're English saddle and, you know, but I did live in Texas and I lived in Calgary in Canada for a while. So they were both very cow town. So I do love all the cowboy stuff. But I tend to like, I'm a mood reader as well. And what I'm reading at the minute, which has been such a lovely, like, it's like Lucy Score, the Blue Moon Ben
Oh yeah,
series.
girl. I love some Lucy. Oh yeah.
And I've never read Lucy before.
Such feel good reads. Like it's like a hug.
Feel good. I feel like, yeah, I'm racing through this series and it's kind of not my typical book, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this because it's just so positive and so lovely. And sometimes it's that escapism we were talking about, I think. Also, Jessica, my sister's begging me because she's like a mega fan of yours. Like I told her to read your books and now she's like obsessed. So she
Thank
said,
you.
when you're on this panel today, will you ask Jessica for an arc of the next book?
I got you, girl. I got you. I'll email you. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'll tell you said that. Yeah.
I love that. Another question from the audience. We are getting kind of close to time. I know I have a couple more questions. We're going to take this one from the audience, and then I've got a couple for you. So thank you just for chatting so far, and for kind of, I know we're getting close to time, so I appreciate just all of your time and hanging in there. But question from Cynthia, and thank you, Whitney and Betsy, for your previous questions. But Cynthia asked, what is your favorite trope to write?
Ooh, yes.
Or do you have a favorite? Because I think that's also a good, like, sometimes
I'd
we
love
do.
to start this one.
Go for it.
The only one bed trope is my absolute favorite. And so I have it in my debut, Her Sulphur Crown. And even though it's set in a palace, I like made the magic have rules that like they have, you know, you're in a palace, you can probably find another bed or ask for one, but I made the magic to where like they can't, they have to be in one bed together, and that was really fun to do. And then in my sophomore novel, it's set on the ocean, so like pirates and stuff, so I have only one hammock.
Does it swing?
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
Sign me up. I say yes to this.
Yes, I need an arc of both of yours as well. Yeah. I love the one I tend to do a lot is Friends to Lovers. I love that one. And
Yes.
again, I think that's because I got with my husband at high school. So, I mean, in terms of my love life, he is literally it. So, like, you know, I haven't dated around or anything like that. We got together so young. So it's kind of, I do love that. But again, going back to that redemption arc, I like to redeem people, especially in my darker books. Because I do think people change, and I do think people constantly learn. I don't like this idea that, you know, it's kind of like the mistakes you make, you should be completely like judged on. And I think all of my books have been like that, where sometimes it just takes meeting the right person, or putting yourself in a group of people who really steer you out of something bad and into something good, or make you see a new possibility or whatever. So I would say Friends to Lovers tends to be my favorite, and on par with redemption type love. Yeah.
Mine is totally accidental pregnancy. Like, and I am not sorry. I know it's such a divisive one,
Oh.
and I didn't realize until I started answering this question that that was like so divisive. But definitely accidental pregnancy and found family are my current faves.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoy Grumpy Sunshine. I don't know, because I do think you see that a lot in like actual in real life as well. Like there's one person who's super bubbly and the other person who's like, can we go home?
Yes.
It's the golden
Yeah.
retriever and the black cat.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But they'll do it for them. And you're like, oh, this
Yes, yes. I love that so much.
so I'm always like, I love this. I would love to know, do you have a favorite line from your books? And if so, what is it? I know that was like a really on the spot one. I like
I think it's easier for me because I've got the one right now. You guys have like so many series.
and you can just pick your most recent release. Like you can pick Wyatt and Write Me for You if that helps. But Alysha, give them some time. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So my favorite line, and this was something that I hadn't like had in my outline. It didn't like come to me before I started drafting. So it was in the moment of writing the chapter. And it's the scene where this isn't a spoiler because you find out in like the first chapter that Anula, the main character, has a plan to get the crown. It kind of says it in the title. So in this scene, her and her auntie are kind of scheming, and her auntie says, if you do this right, there'll be songs sung about you. And Anula asks, what if I do it wrong? And her auntie says, a pyre will be built instead.
Oh, wow.
Dang,
Well,
girl.
love that.
Woo! I
Yeah.
read the shit out of that. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just finished my 32nd book, so my brain's a bit mush, but in Write Me for You, there is, I won't be able to say it verbatim, and my book's too long for me to find out where it is, but Write Me for You, just to give context to it, they are both stage 4 terminal, and they're in a hospice, which that is running a clinical trial. So this is they jokingly call it's like set at a hospital in a ranch, and they call it the Last Chance Ranch. It's very dark humor at times. But there's a bit where June, the protagonist, says to Jessie, the male protagonist, about just basically she says, like, people complain about grey hair, they complain about wrinkles, they complain about getting older. But for me, that's my dream. That's my goal. I want the laughter lines. I want the grey hair. And I want to be able to sit on a porch when I'm 80 years old watching my grandkids play. And it's just I feel like when I wrote it, I really got goosebumps. I was crying writing it because I just thought, we complain about the grey hairs. We complain, like, people are like, oh, I've got wrinkles, I need to go get Botox. And there's nothing wrong with that. You do you. But I think what my sentiment was is I think sometimes we're so caught up with the here and now that I think we ignore sometimes what a gift getting old actually is. Because when you've been robbed of it, or people who've been robbed of it, They would give anything to be 80-year-old with a face full of wrinkles that have been caused by laughter and travel and sitting in the sun. And, you know, so for me, when I wrote that, I was like, if there's anything I want people to take away from this book, which is about a very life-limiting situation, it's kind of like try to hold on to the hope of tomorrow, as opposed to, you know, let's erase the experience I've got of now, kind of thing, you know.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
That's a
That is a
beautiful
sentiment
thought.
I also feel in my heart. And
Yeah.
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 Yeah, as a perimenopausal woman, I need the
Same.
reminder, right? I need the reminder to focus on the fact that we're still here. We get to write
Yeah.
another book. It's all
Yeah.
good. You may sweat through your sheets, but girl, you got another day.
Yeah.
So I will take it.
Yeah.
Real quick, favorite line, I guess, from Cash, enemies to lovers. I have no idea where I pulled this from, but it was, you know, Cash says to Molly, and when they're about to hook up in a bathroom, because of course they do. At first I couldn't stand you, and now I can't stand how much I effing want you. And
Oh,
then he goes down on her on the sink.
Ooh, yes.
You're welcome.
yeah, but that's epic book boyfriend material right there. So, you know.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing those. I'd love to ask, is there anything else from your, like, can you just kind of like quickly sell us your books? Like, what will, I think the quotes kind of all did that, but if there's anything else you want to add about your upcoming releases, or if you have your song for that book, like, so either or, if you could share that, I'd love it. Like, do you have a song that is Wyatt?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It is a song called Marlboro Man, because he is the guy that's sneaking cigarettes. You know, when he's had too much to drink and he wants his best friend too badly, and he's trying to keep his hands off her, he will, you know, dig out his pack of Marlboros from his glove box. And so I found a song, a country song that's angsty and perfect, and it's called Marlboro Man. So give it a listen.
That.
It's a good one.
Awesome.
Mine, I'm sorry, I'm just on my, I couldn't remember the actual title of it, but there's a, if Write Me For You, the song that I would probably say, it's by Alex Warren, it's called Save Me a Seat, or I'll Save You a Seat. I'm trying to figure out the title. I'm rubbish with titles, but I know the words. Yeah, it's like, I'll save you a seat. And it's just about, if somebody's not there, you will always remember them.
Yeah.
Like, I'll save you a seat at the table sitting next to me, even though they're no longer there. So that's kind of like, when I listened to that song, I was like, this is definitely the vibe of that book. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Alysha.
The first song that came to me, because I started writing this a few years ago, like 5 years ago, was Bad Guy by Billie Eilish.
Oh,
I can see that.
That
Yeah.
was the
sexy
vibe
one.
for the
Mhm.
book.
I love all those songs. I'm so excited to listen to them while I read your books. And I just want to thank you all for being here today, for chatting. Again, we have Alysha Rameera with her debut novel coming out this upcoming Tuesday on August 12th, Her Soul for a Crown. We've got Jessica Peterson, USA Today bestselling author. Cash is out now, but we've got the second book of Lucky River Ranch series. Wyatt, it's coming out August 19th, so very soon, but not so soon that you can't read Cash first. And then if you really want to. And then Tillie Cole, New York Times bestselling author, Write Me For You just came out. Beautiful, beautiful book. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to our audience. Thanks for Billy organizing and founding Bookstore Romance Day and bringing us all together so we can chat about love and sex and women empowerment, all the things romance, like found family, grief. So, and our audience for those wonderful questions. Thank you. Just thank you everyone for being here. I loved this. So
Thank you for having
Yes,
us. This
thank
was great.
you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you again to Sourcebooks, Casablanca, and Bloom Books for putting together and sponsoring this panel and being an overall sponsor of Bookstore Romance Day this year. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and thank you especially to Bramble, who are our headline sponsor this year. Thank you to everyone for coming. We have 2 more panels this afternoon. I hope some of you can make it to at least one of them. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye, guys.